Okay, so it should look something like this. We've got the reference image here that I stole off the internet. Just obviously you're doing a bottle project, so just picked a bottle that looked quite nice. There's a few techniques that we're going to use to reproduce it. A lot of it just builds on what we did a few weeks ago when we did Photoshop before. But I've pre-traced everything for you, and I've locked those layers, so you don't need to work on any of those and don't need to move them or anything. What we'll do is we'll just keep adding layers as we build the bottle up. Try and follow the sequence and try and stack your layers in order. So make sure your newest one's on the top. Then it just helps finding things if you need to find things. We will name some of the layers as we go, just because we use those to make selections. So like we did in previous weeks, once we've traced something, to make a selection that where we're going to fill with color, etc., all we do is hold Control and then click on the shape that we want to select. So first thing we do is press Control and click on shape 1 in this box area. So it comes up with a little square selection tool as you hover over it, and click that and it makes that selection there. Then what we're going to do is create our first fill layer, which we're going to fill with our base color. So obviously the bottle's orange, so we want to pick an orange color. So if you just click on your color selection tool here, like this part of the bottle, I'd say is the base color. Most of the others have got different tones on it. So I just picked that area there, hit OK. So then I've got my orange selected, and then we just want to fill that selection that we've made. So we add a new layer, use our paint bucket tool, which is about halfway down. If you don't see it, it's hidden under the gradient tool. You have to click and hold it and select the paint bucket and just fill that with orange, like so. And then where it says layer 2, where you've added your new layer, if you just double click on that, and we'll call that layer fill with a PH. So what we're going to do now is add some lowlights to describe the form of the bottle. So the bottle obviously is essentially a cylinder, and the way, if you look at your reference image, it's got 3 main lowlights for the bottle shape, one running down either side and one running down the middle. So that's what we're going to do now, is put those in. So if we add a new layer, we're going to work in black. So pick your color, then select the brush tool, which is about a third of the way down, which we used in previous weeks. And then I just keep it simple. So if you right click, it brings up your brush options. If you go in general brushes, click soft brush, and then that sets all your settings to the default settings. Then we go to the size at the top, and we make that about 500 pixels. So nice big brush. Well, 450, 500. Nice big brush, and we're just going to draw in this low light that runs down this edge. So I just use the edge of my brush, so I'm not drawing like this because it gets a bit heavy. I just go down the edge like this, like we'd have done in previous weeks. If you want it to be a bit bolder, you can do it twice, like so. So we've done that, our first one. what we want to do now is we don't want anything selected, so if you press Control D, that deselects. And what we're going to do, if you look at generally on bottles, you get like reflected light coming down like we did in previous weeks. So what we do is just move that low light across slightly, and the way we do that is have the move tool selected, the top one, this arrow here, and all I do is just use the arrow keys just to nudge it over a little bit. Does that move? Yes, it's moved slightly. So you can just see that's moving in. Just tap it a few times. So you can see the edge of our bottle and the edge of this low light. So we've moved that across. And that's got a really hard edge on it, and we want to soften that up. So to do that, all we do is go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we've just blurred that by 10 pixels. And hit OK. And that's just softened that. If I zoom in, you can see that's softened that back edge up down here. So we've just got a little bit of reflected light coming through. But when we blurred it, it blurs it in all directions. And we only wanted that edge blurred, so that you can see how that low light's gone bigger than the area that we're working in. So just to tidy things up, we just Control click a fill layer to make that selection again. On your dynamic toolbar, if you pick the second option, that's invert selection, and we just hit delete, and that just tidies everything up. You might not see that it's done anything, but sometimes you print it out and you have like shadows going past things and stuff, so we just like to keep our work tidy. And then what we can do just with that layer is adjust the opacity to soften it up and get a nice low light on it. So about where? What's that? 65%. There we go. That's our first step done. I'll put. So yeah, we'll just repeat that on the other side. Control click a fill layer, add a layer, select our brush tool, like so. Nudge it across, blur it. The filters keep that the last one you used at the top, so we can just click Gaussian blur at the top and it'll apply the same settings. And then we just make the selection again and invert it to delete the bits that we don't want from the blur. So then we've got either side done. And then the middle one's just a bit different because the middle one just kind of runs slightly off center down, slightly to the right, straight down the bottle. So what we'll do there, Control click our fill layer to make our selection. Select our brush tool, and we want to make it about the same size as this low light that I'm hovering over. So if I right click and adjust it so it looks about the same size. Oops, I'm shrink my screen. Like so, maybe a little bit bigger. So 150 should be about right. Make sure you add a layer. If you hold shift, it's going to draw a straight line. 150. Hold shift, draw a straight line down the middle, and it puts in a bold black line like so. And then we can just knock that back, change our opacity. You can see it's a bit bolder here and then feathers out. So to achieve that, what we can do is use our rubber, set our rubber to really big, so like 1,000 or something. And then we can just feather it out towards the bottom. You don't actually go on it, you just do it off to the sides, and you can see it's just rubbing it away a little bit, like so. Yeah, that's all right to me. So now we've got all our low lights in, and our hip hop. So we're putting in the chamfer detail here. That is shape 4. So if we can control click shape 4, there we go. So I've just traced it quite roughly, and you can see that I haven't traced this back edge because I've already traced that. So all I've done is, when I've made that shape, is concentrated on this inner edge of the chamfer. So I've made that selection. We add a layer, and we're just going to fill that with orange. Make sure it's at the top so it goes over everything else when you add that layer. So we just filled that like that. Then we want to get rid of this the angular shape in the middle, and we want it to have this edge, which has already been traced when we traced the bottle. So to get that inside edge, what I do is control click our fill layer, like so, and that gives me, I've got that edge now, but it's selected. We want the inverse of what we've got selected. So if you've got the dynamic toolbar, you can click the inverse selection tool here, which is like the second tool along, like so. Or if you haven't got that, you just go to select and select inverse, like fourth one down. And then what we do is hit delete. Oh no, hit delete, and it doesn't do anything. Why is that not deleting? Is yours working? For some reason mine's not working. Yeah, I have inversed.
Did you select this?
There we go. Okay, so now you've just got the chamfer. Yeah, has everybody got that? You can name that if you want to. Just so we know for reference.
Do the select the layer fill.
Which shape did you use to make it? No, that's the fill. There's actually
shape 1, right?
Did you directly put?
Yeah, this is shape 1.
What's your layer? Is this
I just did it. I think I did. I just put it on.
So we've got that, and we'll just do the same as what we did with the bottle itself, is just put in these lowlights. So we've got one here, and one here. So we're just describing the form of that chamfer detail with lowlights. So control click our chamfer, add a layer, select our brush tool, working in black again. Set your brush to about the same size as the low lights that you want. So that we've got this one here, which is probably about 200 pixels. And we're just putting that in on the wrong layer. Make sure you add a layer. Just get in the habit of adding layers. There we go, like so. Add another layer, and we can put this one in, and add another layer, Might have added 2 layers then. I did. And put the one down this back edge here in as well. And I've just roughed them in quick. Obviously, you can take a bit more time if you want, but really we're just building up the form of that chamfer detail. And then what we'll do once they're in is just adjust the layer opacity to each one to get them looking like tonally like the other ones. So if I just knock that one back by to about 50-ish and do the same for the other two. Like so. Should look something like that. So it's quite quick and easy to do. Like I say, I usually just work in black. You can use the colour blend modes and to get it more tonally accurate, but who's got time for that? I haven't. It looks close enough. Plus, we're just keeping it simple to start with. The reason I do all the low lights and highlights in black and white is that if you want to do some colour options further down the line, you can just pick your fill layer and do a colour saturation and just change the colour of the bottle if you want, and everything updates. If you do it the other way, then it doesn't update. So that's generally why I work like that. Okay, so what we're going to do is just put this last low light in around the bottom there to make it look like it's sat on the ground. At the moment, it's got a bit of a halo and looks like it's kind of glowing a little bit. So control click your fill layer, add a new layer, and then we go into small brush, like 40 pixels. Control plus and minus, zoom in and out, like I said before, press space, let you pan. So then we're working along this bottom edge of the bottle and we just go along that with our brush to put in that radius on the bottom of the bottle. So like the halfway point of my brush is going along the line. Pretty much. That kind of just gives you a visual guide to kind of get that fillet pretty accurate across the bottom. And we zoom out and deselect, and then it's give it a nice weight to the bottom. Mine's a little bit bold, so I'll just knock it back a little bit. Like so. Everybody done that? Cool. This is going pretty smooth, this is. Anybody have any problems, just shout me. So once we've done that, what we'll do is start putting our highlights in, and we do those in a similar way, but we use a few different techniques because they've actually got a bit more form to them than the low lights. If I zoom in and we look at our reference image, I don't know what happened there. Okay, it's gone a bit crazy. You see that this highlight is distorted with the form of the bottle. So we'll use the pen tool to draw that in to start with. To get the general form. So to do that, what we do is we just make sure we added a new layer, select the pen tool, which is about 2/3 of the way down. Looks like a tip of a fountain pen. And if it'll let me zoom in, what we're going to do is basically draw this shape of this highlight. So if I click where I want my path to start, which I'm drawing with my pen tool, and then it goes down here, then it kind of kinks out to here. So what I'll do is click about where I want that curve to start, and then if you click and hold, what is going on with my computer? My computer's gone crazy. What is that? It's got snaps on or something. Okay, so with the pen tool, we're just going to draw that in. Click that. Click about here. If you click and hold, it pulls the handles out automatically. You can edit these afterwards, so we're just doing it roughly. Then it steps out to here. So we pull those handles out, and then it finishes somewhere around there. We go straight across. If you press Control, you can edit where those points are. And then we draw in this shape here with that little S curve there. So point here. Point here where it kicks back out. Point at the top, and then click on where you started to close it off. So now we've got our path drawn. If you need to edit it, you just click and hold on the pen tool, go to the Convert Points tool, and then you can click on each point. If you hold Control, then you can move those points. If you just click on it and drag, then you can drag the handles out and adjust the curves. So we just want a path that looks something like this, the shape of this highlight. Like so, I think. When you're happy with it, if you just click on the little menu option here on the right hand side and save your path. So then you've got your path of your highlight, and then you can make that into a selection the same way as we do with the others. So hold Control and click it, and it turns it into a selection for us to add a layer and fill in white. So make sure you're on white. Fill it with your paint bucket tool like so, and I missed. Like so. So now what we want to do is make it look a bit more like this highlight. So it kind of feathers out towards the bottom here. So I just use the rubber tool. Quite big, like 500 pixels ish, and just rub it out straight across the bottom like so. It's a bit sharp at the moment, so we want to blur it a little bit. So if you use Gaussian blur again, filter blur, Gaussian blur, and just blur it by like 3 pixels, maybe 4 pixels, and then adjust the opacity of it to make it look something like this. and then because it kind of goes more transparent towards the center of the bottle, we can just use a big brush. Don't actually go over the highlight, just working next to the highlight. Just to knock it back a little bit. Probably needs to blur a bit more. There we go, that's better. I think I undid it. Has everybody managed that? Does it look something like that? Ish. That's what we're going for. Okay, so then we'll do this middle one here. That one's much simpler to do. What we do is make our selection by clicking our fill layer, make our brush similar size to the highlight. So select that brush tool. It's about 40 pixels, maybe a little bit bigger, 45. That we want to increase the hardness of our brush, so it gives us a bit of a harder edge to it. So if we make it about 70%, and then we'll just literally draw that one in. I think 40 was the right size. And to draw it in, just hold shift like we did the low light. Make sure you're on a new layer. Did I add a layer? Can't remember. We'll just add one for look. Just draw that one in. And then use our rubber to rub it off at that angle, rub it out at that angle. With a smaller rubber. Like so. And then we want to move it so it's behind. You see I've done mine and it's in front of the chamfer. If you just click and hold it, then you can drag it behind the chamfer and adjust the opacity a little bit. Like so. It probably needs a little bit of blur to it as well, so we can just reapply the same blur like that. So what we'll do is work our way around the bottle, putting the rest in. So we've just got one on this chamfer here and the one on the back here. That one I use the pen tool because it curves round and follows that line slightly. So I'd draw that in as a new path. So if I just do that one, go back to a pen tool, I'll zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. So we're just doing this one here, and it just kind of kicks in. It's got a little tail to it there, and a fillet on the back. So zoom in a bit more. Just do a point there, point here, follow that edge. Point there, follow that edge. Point here, going up like that. Point there, and close it off. So we always try and do it in as few points as possible. just to keep it cleaner, and it's just a bit easier to control. And then we can go back in and edit it afterwards. So this one here at this point, if I just click on that, then it just gives us so it's going to a sharp point there. If I zoom in, you can see that a bit better. And we can just tweak it so it's following that path. Same with this one. And adjust the handles to suit. You can actually click on the lines and adjust those slightly. Obviously it doesn't have to be super accurate. We're just putting in a highlight. So that's a general shape of that highlight. So click on our path tab, save that path, control click it to make our selection, and then we just fill that with white because I'd already added a new layer, like so. And then we can just adjust that in our on our layers tab, adjust the opacity of it, and maybe just with our brush, with our rubber a little bit. That's too big. We've got our top 3 highlights in now, these 3, and then we just want to put that one in, and that's the most of our highlights done. So to do that last one, a quick easy way of doing it is if we just select our chamfer layer, make a selection from that, and then add a layer, and just fill that with white, like so. And then all I do is just use the polygonal lasso tool. So the 3rd tool down, polygonal lasso, zoom in a little bit, and then we're just going to cut that off about there. So we just make a selection like that, hit delete, and then do the same the other side. Like so. So we just got that highlight there, which we'll then blur using our using Gaussian blur like we've been doing, by 4 pixels ish, looks about right. And then just adjust the opacity, like so. And maybe just feather that out a little bit with the rubber. There we go. Well, that's good. Okay. Have we all got those highlights in? Shall I pause it? So we've got our highlights in on the bottle. What we want, if we zoom in, there we go. you can see there's a highlight that runs around this edge here. So rather than, there are a few ways we can do it, but an easy way of doing it, well, one of the easy ways, what we can do is make a selection of our bottle, add a layer, fill that with white, like so. Select our chamfer, and then delete that from that layer, like so. So now we've just got all this white bit here, that bit there. Then what we can do is, if you just go on this selection tool here, you can contract your selection by 3 pixels and then hit delete. That gives us a white outline all the way around the edge, and then we can just use our rubber to get rid of the bits that we don't want. That just gives us a nice highlight to that edge. It's a little bit sharp, so we might want to blur it just to soften it up just slightly. So filter blur, Gaussian blur, and probably just do it like a few pixels. Yeah, 2 pixels, that's good. Just gives us that highlight that's running around that edge that all these link to. So that's most of that's the actual bottle rendered. The bottle itself, well done, that's the furthest we've ever got in one go. So what we do next is add the rubberized detail at the back here, which I believe will be shape 2, maybe? No, shape 1. Yeah, shape 1. So I've selected shape 1 by control clicking it, and then we'll add a layer in between shape 1 and your first fill layer, and we'll just fill that with a very dark grey that we'll just pick off the bottle about there. Like so. Have you done that? And then you just want to put in this highlight that runs across the back of the bottle there. So if we control click that layer, and then we can just draw in that with a white brush.
Really?
Large white brush. Oops. A bit bigger. I mean, I've still got it set to hard. Make sure your brush is set to soft. We go bigger than that. like that, and adjust the opacity of it. Oh, wrong layer. I've just drawn on the wrong layer. Let me do it again. Make sure you add a layer. And that layer is before your fill layer. There we go.
What shape was the fillet thing?
So I'll just put that highlight in, and then I'll just adjust the opacity of it to get it looking somewhat like. Might need a bit more form to it. Like so. So we went to put some of these grips in. They're quite fiddly, but an easy way of doing them is if we add a layer, use our pen tool, and if we kind of zoom in so you can see what they look like. So they kind of follow the contour of that chamfer. So what I'm going to do is use my pen tool to draw the first one. Like so. You can edit it with your control points to kind of get it working, so it just kind of follows that contour. It's close enough for now anyway. Then we just, with our brush, just set to black. We want to make our brush about the size of those ridges, the grips. So we want a really small brush, about 10 pixels, I'm guessing. Yeah, probably 10. That's about right. Make sure we're on our brush tool, and we'll just right click and say stroke path. Make sure your brush tool is selected in the drop down menu, hit OK. That just kind of draws that in for you. So that's one of our ridges, our grips, sorry. And then what we can do is, on that layer that we've just done that, double click and use the layer blend options, and we set it to bevel emboss. And set it to up. Is that working? I can't tell if that's working or not. Oh, size is tiny. I've got it on the wrong layer. Oh. Let me go back a little bit. There we go, add a layer first, then stroke the path. Then deselect our path and double click the layer to bring up the layer blends and add a bevel emboss. There we go, now it's working. kind of working on the back edge. And we just have to adjust the settings to get it so it's working right. There we go, there it is. Got to get the angle right. Oh, it's on an inner bevel, bevel emboss, depth, right angle, and adjust the size. There we go. And it's just adding a highlight on the top of the grips. And a highlight down the back, if you can see that. So we've got to just adjust the angle to get that right. So if you click on this is the direction of the light. You can see it change, it updated in the little box, the preview box. So that's coming from this side, so it's putting a highlight down in this edge here. There we go. It's running down the right side now. Because it's quite small, it's taking some fine adjustment. There we go, to get it right. That just gives you a highlight running along that grip detail, which we can adjust later. So I just build those up by drawing them with a pen tool and stroking the path to add those grips. Okay, well, that's it. We've got 10 minutes left, so I will pause it there